Does the budget to bid ratio for max conversions target CPA for YouTube ads have to be 10 to 15x if you are trying to generate leads versus sales?
No, but it's a time. A time is an XY axis. So think about your X and Y axis with more ad spend, less time, with less ad spend, more time. What we found out is like 10 to 15 times is to get it within about 2 weeks. You're like fairly optimized, or you at least have a really good understanding of where it's gonna be in 2 weeks. My slowest scale was a year. We literally ran it almost like dead for a year. And then after a year, we bumped it from like 100 grand that year to 400 grand in 2 months.
Wait, so
And
they
that
just
was
blew like 100
just,
grand that year.
no, it was okay. It wasn't fantastic, but it just never got off the ground until we just hit the gas one day.
Gotcha.
And so this is actually a really important thing to share, just because people, they need to have that kind of, how do I do this type of thing? If I said, yeah, no comparison, and I go back to like, I don't know, 2020, maybe, I forget exactly when we started working with this company, but it was like,
Oh, this
yay,
company. Got it.
woo. So yeah, it's like, all right, it's 12 grand, 8 grand, 13 grand, 40 grand, 250,000. That was all YouTube. So
Yeah.
that's like, if you run it for this long, sure. So that's why time is an X and Y axis. Here is your X and your Y. I could have not done this if I started here. It would basically have been like,
Yeah.
so it would have had a much higher ad spend and much shorter of a time. So you decide which pain for gain scenario you're in. Do you want to spend $100 for a year or 15 grand in one day?
Yeah. Well, and the question here too is like how creative kind of comes in the mix of that. Because like I would say there's potentially an argument for like saying, hey, like engagement, creative, good or bad, like longer time frame, probably better, but unless you're gonna
Yeah.
look at it like, after a day.
We tried like 24 different ads. The same one kept winning. So we're like, all right, just bump it up.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't wait a year on purpose. It was like, I'm running out of inventory and I'm getting new things and we have to make a new one and we have to fix this one that started leaking. So it's a new company going through their inventory issues on a shoestring budget while we're trying to market for it. But after they were like, we're ready to go. We got a loan and we have inventory.
Spend the loan. Terrifying
Exactly.
place to be, but hey, that's awesome. It's a good story.
Right.
Mila comes
Right.
for the hair analogies.
Right. Which is what Larry said next. Yeah, he says, what are your changing to improve increased sales on the Harry ladder? It's actually not. What that basically is indicating is this is what Meta is doing as they get closer. You're going to see frequency increase. You see click-through rate decrease, because literally on the last day, it's like, you want to buy, you want to buy, want to buy, want to buy, want to buy, want to buy.
And on the head.
You're like, ignore. And then so your click-through rate's like, stop it. And then you're like, fine, I'll buy. So that's essentially what it kind of does. It squeezes you. Camille says Kaizen. Yes, Kaizen is a philosophy that you improve 1% every day. And at the end of the year, you're 365% better. But exactly right.
What creative strategy do you recommend for middle of the funnel campaigns in Facebook?
And sorry, it's rapid fire because my call's starting now. So let's see. What creative strategy do you recommend for middle funnel campaigns on Facebook? My question to you is, how have you actually verified that is hitting a middle of the funnel audience? My opinion, if you cannot verify that, we cannot use that as a rule to start to optimize against. So remember, if you're expecting a specific result, how are you expecting middle of the funnel traffic to be engaged in that campaign? What are the metrics you are following and where are you identifying that? If it's because I'm targeting them, you can't use that anymore. That's what this whole thing is kind of about, is let's assume you have no idea who is targeting. How are you finding out who is targeting? Have they been engaged in other campaigns or have they been to your website before? If we can't answer definitively one way or the other, it's now essentially just kind of auto targeting, and we're hoping that it can get into good enough engagement and probably some conversions to at least do well. That is not scalable. And so that was my question back to you, is how do you prove to yourself that that's actually middle of the funnel engagement definitively outside of what Meta says? That's the hardest thing. When we ran Edge Mesh, we were finding people from 30, 60, and 90 days ago being identified by our prospecting campaigns. This was 2 years ago. So a year ago. It was June of 2024. That's when we started to see really wonkiness where exclusions are actually not working. That was through Edge Match in June 2024. So this has been a long time coming, which I would then say a year later, knowing that that's been nuked, and you're like, yeah, how do I create a test of those people? My first question is, are you sure? Because if you're wrong at that point, everything that you do from here on out will never work.